يجي هنا
ولا تعلموا وقتها مو دار.
اي انا ما
هو
اي انا لا تطيق انا
يلا طلع
بدون تحقيق بدون كل شيء. حيدك كان
الموضوع عليه
كانوا يطلعون الافغاني كلش مرتين فيزا اسبوع يعني مره قول الباص قول افغاني، المره الثانيه لو عراقي واحد لو اثنين والبقيه كلها افغاني.
100 افغان عراقيين.
سوينا مظاهرات الافغانيين كانوا احنا نطلع سوينا مظاهرات كملنا ما طلعوا ولا واحد. خرجنا كم خرجنا كم خرجنا خرجنا ايه فهذا موجود هنا تاليها مو خرجنا كملنا الاسبوع اللي يعني بس هدأوا المظاهرات الاسبوع هذا الباص دورنا بغريق كانوا طلعوا مظاهرات.
ممنوع
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد وثمود الذين جابوا الصخر بالواد وفرعون ذي الأوتاد الذين طغوا في البلاد فأكثروا فيها الفساد فصب عليهم ربك صوت عذاب إن ربك لبالمرصاد فأما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه ونعمه فيقول ربي أكرمن وأما إذا ما ابتلاه فقدر عليه رزقه فيقول ربي أهانن كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين وتأكلون التراث أكلا لما وتحبون المال حبا جما كلا إذا دكت الأرض دكا دكا وجاء ربك والملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا أقسم بهذا البلد وأنت حل بهذا البلد ووالد وما ولد. لقد خلقنا الإنسان في كبد أيحسب أن لن يقدر عليه أحد يقول أهلكت مالا لبدا أيحسب أن لم يره أحد ألم نجعل له عينين ولسانا وشفتين وهديناه النجدين فلا اقتحم العقبة وما أدراك ما العقبة فك رقبة أو إطعام في يوم ذي مسغبة يتيما ذا مقربة أو مسكينا ذا متربة ثم كان من الذين آمنوا وتواصوا بالصبر وتواصوا بالمرحمة أولئك أصحاب الميمنة والذين كفروا بآياتنا هم أصحاب المشأمة عليهم نار مؤصدة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
أحسنت عمو، شكرا حبيبي.
أفضل الأعمال الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. نتوجه لزيارة سيد الشهداء عليه السلام. أزور سيدي ومولاي ومعتمدي ورجائي في آخرتي ودنياي أبا عبد الله الحسين أصالة عن نفسي ونيابة عن سيدي ومولاي الحجة ابن الحسن المهدي وعن والدي ووالد والدي وعن المؤمنين والمؤمنات قربة طاعة إلى الله تعالى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصين. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتري الموتور. السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حليت بفنائك، عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله، لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت عظمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعظمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. فلعن الله أمتين أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمتين دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها. ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم يوم، ولعن الله الممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. برئتوا إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشياعهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاطبة، ولعن الله ابن مرجانه، ولعن الله عمر بن سعد، ولعن الله شمرا. ولعن الله أمتين أسرجت والجمايت وتنقبت لقتالك. بأبي أنت يا وأمي، لقد عظم مصايبي بك، فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب ثارك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن قاتلك ونصب لك الحياة يا رب، وبالبراءة ممن أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم، وأبرؤوا إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانه وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشياعكم. برئتوا إلى الله وإليكم منهم، وتقربوا إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الحيار، وبالبراءة من أشياعهم وأتباعهم. إني سلم لمن وحرب وولي وعدو، فأسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة، وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة، وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني طلب ثاري مع إمام هدى ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم. وأسأل الله بحقكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يعطيني بمصابي بكم أفضل ما يعطى مصابا بمصيبته، مصيبة ما يا أعظمها وأعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقامي هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد، ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن آكلة الأكباد اللعين ابن اللعين على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موطن وموقف وقف فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم لعن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك اللعنة أبد الآبدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعن منك والعذاب الأليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني وابدأ به أولا ثم لعن الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم لعن يزيد خامسا ولعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجانه وعمر بن سعد وشمراه وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. سجود. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم. الحمد لله على عظيم رزيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات. الفاتحة قبلها الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
أحسن سيد محمد رحمه الله وجهه. اللهم صل على محمد وآل
بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بفضل الله، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد. اللهم صل وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين، واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. Why am I here? And what exactly am I doing in this world that I'm in? This is a question that is fundamental and has bothered mankind for a very long time and will continue to bother them. This thought of what is my purpose? Was I just created to wander about in this world aimlessly with no reason? And even God begs the question. He says, أَيَحْسَبُ الْإِنسَانُ He says, أَيَحْسَبُ الْإِنسَانُ أَنْ يُتْرَكَ سُدًى Do you think you were created without a purpose? Without an aim? Allah created mankind. And upon the creation of mankind, Allah placed a spirit. And when we say His spirit, it means the spirit that God owns, not God's essence, as some people try and sway from the thought. And placed His spirit within Adam alayhi salam. And prior to doing this, had given a command that when I place the spirit within Adam, I want you all, these celestial beings, these angels, I want you all to fall on your face in prostration, in obedience to my command. Adam opened his eyes, and the first thing he noticed was what? One obstinate and arrogant individual standing in defiance of the commandment of Allah. So Allah says to Adam, He says this in the Quran, He says, فَقُلْنَا يَا آدَمُ إِنَّ هَذَا عَدُوٌ لَكَ وَلِزَوْجِكَ This is your enemy and your wife's enemy. So this was the first bit of advice that Allah gave Adam upon his entry into the body. That you have an enemy. Be careful of this enemy, because this enemy can cause you many problems. And this enemy acted fast and had Adam removed from the garden that Allah Azza wa Jal had designed and created for Adam and Hawa to live in. Then they were sent down into the earth. Allah gave them the second bit of advice. He said, in the verse he says, that when he says to them to go down, he mentions فَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُمْ مِنِّي هُدَى. That Allah Azza wa Jal says that I will send or give to you, to the people, the inhabitants of the earth. He mentions the word huda. And then he says, فَمَنْ تَبِعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. So the second advice, he said, I will send huda. And whoever follows this huda will never fear, and they will never grieve. They won't grieve and they won't fear. In other words, I will send guidance, but this guidance is not an intangible thing. As when we think of huda, we think guidance as something that's not tangible. Yes, its effect you cannot visualize, but the guidance that's mentioned here is the prophets from Adam to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. So I will send you this, and if you follow this, you will never fear, nor will you ever grieve. And this was the world. Put on this world 2 pieces of advice. Some people contest. And they question this. They say there's a problem. Why didn't Allah create a perfect world? That's a question. You ever notice when they tell you we don't have the eyesight of a hawk? We don't have the sense of smell of a shark. You know? We don't have the hearing of a bat. And all these things people come because their perception of perfection is erred. You ever apply for a job and they tell you you're overqualified and they won't give you this job? Because we have a saying, we say horses for courses. That if you put the wrong person in the wrong place, they won't be able to do a certain field. Once when I was younger, I was doing an aptitude test for a job. And they told me you failed the test. I said, how? I finished the test. And I was certain I got the answers right. They said, no. The objective of this exam is not to finish the test. If you finish it, you will find the job too monotonous and tedious. And you cannot do it. So the objective is made for a certain people to have a certain manner. They said you will end up killing yourself in the job because what happens is you go into autopilot when something becomes easy. This is a problem. So certain things are for certain people. So the design of this world is perfect for what it's for. The purpose of this world and what it's designed for is perfect. Allah would not have designed it. Allah says this world was not, its value is only for a test. He would not use it as a reward for the righteous, nor would he use it as a punishment for the wicked. So it has no other purpose except being a proving ground. And this was the problem when the angels, when they objected to the creation. They objected not understanding. What did they say? أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاءِ. That you're going to put people on it, and these people are going to cause corruption, and they're going to shed blood. And we're perfect. وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. We're doing what's right. We're always glorifying you. So Allah says to them, إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. I know what you do not know. Because this world is a world of trial. Created as a world of trial. If I place therein a creation that has no choice, imagine these creations are like angels that obey. They have no choice then there is no trial. Everyone just follows suit. No choice, no trial, no distinction, no difference. So the whole purpose of the trial becomes obsolete. It's a bit like the current state of this world. This world's like that. Now, see, people get awards all the time. And everyone is commended. Have you ever looked, has any of you ever read your children's report cards? They're so enigmatic. You do not understand what the teacher's saying. And every week or two your child gets a certificate, a merit certificate. And I collect these and I stack them up, because what happens is one day the teacher calls me in and says, you know, your child's been disrupting the class. I take all the merit certificates with me and I put them there and I say, I have been led to believe that my child is exceptional and the evidence is sitting here with me. I know exactly what's happening, but I want to show them how flawed their system is. It's not meritorious. All these, we encourage people of this background or people of minority groups to apply. No. You employ who's best for the job. That's what you're supposed to do. You employ who is right. So they taught you a system that is flawed because, and I always play this card, if anything happens, I have these certificates waiting for this. So as far as I'm concerned, I've got a high roll, what do they call them? The A rollers, the ones that are top of class. My child probably sits in the front seat right next to the teacher. That's what your certificates have been telling me. And that's what the report cards keep telling me. So in this kind of a system, there's no test. And then suddenly they slap you with a HSC at the end and you go, what the hell's been going on? Because all my life, I've been told I'm a good student. And suddenly, I don't know. So there's no real trial taking place. There is a system. There is a trial in this world. In fact, Allah says, لَوْ يَشَاءُ اللَّهُ لَهَدَى النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. If God wanted, He would have just guided everyone. But then there's no test. There's no purpose. What are we doing here? Then we can say that there's no purpose to this world. There's no aim. Honestly then, because everything's working out. Like a child that wasn't talking. For 5 years he wouldn't say a word. His parents took him from doctor to doctor and he wouldn't say a word. So one day, as he's sitting at the dinner table, he said to his mother, more salt. And his parents went crazy. You talk? We've been waiting for so long till you say a word. Well, he said, up till now everything's been okay, so I've had nothing to complain about. So when everything's working out, no one would even mention anything or even open their mouth. But this world has obstacles. And it has all these obstructions that cause us to question and ask. And this is what brings about trial. So right now, look at us. We're all nice people. Hi, how are you? Put someone through a bit of a trial. Let's see how they react. This is where, when they tell you a friend in need is a friend indeed, that's how you know your friends. Where else would you know your friends? Everyone's your friend till you need something, then you know who's your real friend and who's not your friend. And thus Allah gave us a choice. As the dear brother that was reciting the Quran, sorry I didn't catch your name, mentioned in Surah Al-Balad, وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ. So Allah Azza wa Jal showed us the two ways. There's only two ways. People might think there's a lot of no, there's what's right and there's what's wrong. So whatever is not right is wrong. And whatever is not wrong is right. There's only two ways. Don't think there are multiple ways. And Allah has told you what is right and anything else does not work. We go back to our discussion about acquiring knowledge. This is a muqaddimah, this is the prelude for this. Because when it comes to acquiring knowledge, one of the biggest problems is this mixture of knowledge. And I'm going to tell you a story that you've heard before. I'm sure you would. People that sit under the mumbar hear these stories all the time. It's the story of Anwan al-Basri, who was a man that was 94 years old. Anwan al-Basri was a student of Malik ibn Anas. So he said to himself, he said, I wished to learn from Ja'far ibn Muhammad. I said, I wanted to learn from Imam al-Sadiq as well. In fact, his words in the narration says, أحببت أن آخذ عنه كما أخذت من مالك. Notice the problem here. The problem here is he viewed the Imam and Malik as contemporaries. When we say contemporaries, I don't mean contemporaries as living in the same time, but as contemporary scholars, like you would look at two professors in biology and say, this is his contemporary. To be viewing them like this is an injustice. It's like saying, I'm going to worship Allah today and tomorrow I'll worship Iblis. This is exactly the same. You are moving from one side to another. One side is Hujjatullah ala al-Khalq, and the other one, Allah has given no sultan, no authority to at all. So when he approached the Imam and asked to learn from him, the Imam said, Inni rajulun matloob, I'm someone that's busy. And he said, and I have all these, awrad, I've got all these dhikrs, I say, I've got Quran to read. He told him basically, I've got all these things I need to do, I don't have time to waste. And then he said at the end, he says, فَخُذْ عَنْ مَالِكَ وَاخْتَلِفْ إِلَيْهِ كَمَا كُنْتَ تَخْتَلِفُ إِلَيْهِ. Go back to Malik. Because the Imam knew what his intention was. This guy wanted to eat from both trees. And you can't have from both. So on one said, I was distressed from this and saddened, and I began talking to myself as I left. He said, لو تفرس في خيرا. If he had seen any good in me, he wouldn't have turned me away. See, when you have when wahad bistabsir, when someone starts to have light in understanding, he knows the problem isn't with the Imam, the problem is with me. I have come about it the wrong way. If you said to someone, for example, if you went to go see a doctor, and you say, I read on Google that I should do this, and then I thought, I'll come and see what your opinion is too. You know what he'll be thinking? Is this guy serious? It's offensive. Said all these years I've been studying, and then you've just went and got your opinion from Google and brought it forward to answer me. Or I love when someone says, I read it on Wikipedia. I said, do you know who writes Wikipedia? Anyone that can put an entry writes Wikipedia. Before, when people, I remember when an event takes place, a war takes place, and they keep saying this, the article here has got a lot of conflict in it, because everyone puts in different editions of what they want the narrative to be. So he's saying to the Imam, I took off Malik, now I'm going to come and take off you. There he's mixing, as I mentioned before. It's like when someone contacts me and says, they'll send me all these questions, and it's a long list. And I look at these questions and I said, if this guy, these are questions that you always answer. So I messaged him back, I said, if I give you the responses, are you going to follow? Or are you just wasting my time? Or it's just to argue? Because I don't got no time for this. If he's just putting this on, when they ask you a question that's one of the people, they'll ask me, does your Prophet have ilm al-ghayb? And I say, well, if he doesn't have ilm al-ghayb, what was he doing here? If he came and told me, listen, apples are good, you should eat apples. And, you should wake up early in the morning. Yeah, I know all this. Can you tell me about the hereafter? I don't know about the hereafter. What's going to happen there? I don't know. So what's your purpose of being here? What are you here? Can you tell me about Allah? I don't know about God. Unfortunately, I don't know about anything called ghaib. You don't even need to give him an answer because it's ludicrous. It's so ridiculous. I wouldn't even entertain to discuss the question, does the Prophet have ilm al-ghaib? What's the purpose of the Prophet coming to us? What did he come to teach us if he doesn't have ilm al-ghaib? So anyway, Anwan said, I went to Masjid al-Nabawi Sharif because he was in Medina, and he went to the Rawda. The Rawda is between where the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa ali is buried and the Mambar of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa ali. He said that I prayed and I asked Allah, oh Allah, make Ja'far ibn Muhammad affectionate towards me and let him give me of his knowledge. And then he actually says, وَتَرْزُقَنِي مِنْ عِلْمِهِ مَا أَهْتَدِي بِهِ إِلَى صِرَاطِكَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. See, he's actually said now, unlike before, I want to learn from both. He said, no, guide me. And one of his knowledge, what will guide me to this one path, the upright path. He's decided he doesn't want what he had before. He wants to drink the clean water, not the one that's been contaminated. He wants to drink the pure water that has divine knowledge. So he says he returned home and he was saddened. But what he's done here that's so important, see, initially he wanted to cluster everything up all together. I was actually talking to a sister today, and she's from the other sect. But I've been talking to her for a year now, and she still says to me, I'm at crossroads. And I told her, okay, do you believe Ali is the rightful Khalif? She said, yes. I said, do you believe that Abu Bakr usurped the Caliphate? She said, yes. I said, you can't be a Sunni anymore because you've negated that. So what do I have to leave that now? I said, you can't stay there because you don't believe in it. Imagine a Christian said to you, I don't believe in the divinity of Christ. Do you still go to church? Yes. Why do you go to church if you don't believe Christ is divine? You no longer believe in this. So what am I? You're a wayfarer now. You're on your way trying to find the truth. I'm no longer the other sect. I've got to move on and search for what the truth is. So I need to do tabarri before I can do tawali. And that's with every case. I cannot say, listen, you see those people that tell you I'm a Buddhist but I'm also a Christian. Have you heard those double, I don't know if you've ever met these dual religions. He tells you I believe in this and I believe in that. I believe in that deity and that deity. And God says, before you say that, you recognize me. You say, La ilaha. You have to negate everything that's adored, everything that's worshipped, everything that's venerated, other than Allah Azza wa Jal. Everything has to be negated. And then this time, he said, I prayed Salat al-Asr and I rushed off to the house of the Imam. And this time, I was welcomed. And I sat with the Imam. Now, there are several questions that he's asked him at the beginning, and the Imam asks about him, and then the Imam has a deep thought and silence, and then he says to him, why are you here? What is your need? So he says, I prayed to Allah that you would turn towards me and give me of your knowledge that will guide me to the righteous path. So I want of the knowledge. Then the Imam responded with a response that people would find mind-boggling. Because we have an understanding of knowledge in a certain way. But when you turn towards Ahlul Bayt, they give you a different understanding of knowledge. The Imam says to him, لَيْسَ الْعِلْمُ بِالتَّعَلُّمِ. We never expect this. He says knowledge is not gained from studying or learning. That's not how you get knowledge. Because we don't understand. We understand knowledge is acquired from where? Study. Isn't that right? That I go and I research and that's how I learn. He says, لَيْسَ الْعِلْمُ بِالتَّعَلُّمِ. Then he says, إِنَّمَا. See, إِنَّمَا, I always repeat this in my discussions for people to learn this. When you see إِنَّمَا anywhere, it basically confines something to one place. So, it's saying this and only this, or that and only that. It's nothing else. When you see إِنَّمَا, he says, إِنَّمَا هُوَ نُور. The ilm that you're seeking is nur. Nur does not mean the light that you see here. It's something that enlightens, something gives light. يقع في قلب من يريد الله تبارك وتعالى أن يبديه. So, knowledge is something that Allah makes to reside within the heart of whoever He wants to reveal it to. Not everyone gets it. So whoever He wants, He will give this to. That's why sometimes you will understand, and you see this a lot of the times, an action that makes someone open up to something else. For example, when you read about Luqman al-Hakim, you've all read his story of how he got his hikmah. How did he get his wisdom? How did he become wise? An angel came up to him and said that you've been offered to become a representative of God. You know, to have a position with Allah Azza wa Jal. And Luqman said, has this been forced upon me, or is it something that I can accept or reject? He says, no, you can accept or reject. And he asked him, why? What's the difference? The angel says. He says, because if it's forced upon me, I will be happy because Allah will guide me on this way. But if it's something that I have a choice with, I don't want to take this because it's too much of a burden for me. If something has been forced, Allah will give me this guidance. And then he says he slept and he woke up and he had hikmah. Like that. And he was wise. Because of understanding his position. These days, honestly, you know, when you tell someone, do you know how to do this? Yeah, bad if so we, and he gets up and does it. You know, he doesn't want anyone telling him he doesn't know how to do it. You know, I've seen this so often. You could tell when people, you know, there's people that wing it all the way and they get somewhere. And then you find out, how did this person get to this position? You think, how did you talk to someone? And like I was talking to someone and the position he had, I could not believe this guy had this position. And because he didn't know what he was doing. So this guy was winged it the whole way. Hands in a CV, they give him the job. No one searches to see if all the credentials are ticked off. They just give him the job, he gets there. But someone that knows who they are will not take these risks. They know this position's not for them. They don't step forward in this manner. So then, what happens here? He says to him, فَإِنْ أَرَدْتَ الْعِلْمِ فَاطْلُبْ أَوَّلًا مِنْ نَفْسِكَ حَقِيقَةَ الْعُبُودِيَّةِ. That if you want ilm, seek from yourself true servitude. People fail to understand what they are. They fail to understand that I'm a abd, I'm a servant, I'm a slave of God. First and foremost, that even Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi When he taught us to pray, he taught us to say, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Slave, servant, then messenger. I have to understand my position. If the one whom the entire universe was created for professes and is proud of being the servant of God, what does that leave me? See, the question here, the thing that amazes me is how Anwan here has changed completely. Why? Anwan doesn't take this and say, all right, I'm going to go pray Salat al-Layl and do all these Amal. He's at the source. He doesn't go find someone else to tell him what it is. He doesn't draw the conclusion himself. He doesn't go see some Sufi master to tell him this is what bondage is and submission is. Do you know what Anwan does? Anwan asks who? The source. He asks the Imam here. Because he's just drank from where? He's drank from the spring of life, Ainul Hayat. From the Imam alayhi salam. And he's let the mucky water scurry its way into the septic channels because he doesn't need this anymore. Because he knows where he has the pure water. Why would I go to other than this source? So he says to him, Ma haqiqatul ubudiyya. Tell me what it is. Because you're the one that teaches, and that's why I'm here for. The Imam lists three things. The first thing he says, أن لا يرى العبد لنفسه فيما خوله الله إليه ملكه لأن العبيد لا يكون لهم ملك. Firstly, the Imam says that the slave, the true slave, does not see what God has entrusted with him to be his property. Why? Because slaves don't own. They don't have anything. You know, sometimes you see these people, the second they get married, the first thing they want to do is they want to change his wife's surname. Because for him, he just got new property, his wife. Like he bought himself a new cow and he wants to brand it. You know, change the name, I own it now. And some people, they walk around like their children are their property. Talks to his kids as if he owns them. You don't own yourself. You're someone's property. This is servitude. This is true bondage, to know that I belong to Allah Azza wa Jal. This is where I am. Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, قُلِ اللَّهُمَّ مَالِكَ الْمُلْكِ تُؤْتِي الْمُلْكَ مَنْ تَشَاءُ وَتَنْزِعُ الْمُلْكَ مِمَّنْ تَشَاءُ. Allah owns everything. تَبَارَكَ الَّذِي بِيَدِهِ الْمُلْكِ. Everything. He is sovereign above all. No one owns anything. Allah owns our masters. Put it this way. We say that our masters, Ahlul Bayt, Allah owns them. Everything is Allah's. In fact, when everything ceases to exist, Allah asks a question. He says, لِمَنَ الْمُلْكِ الْيَوْمِ. And there is a deafening silence. To whom is all sovereignty? Who owns? هذا مالي مالا ما في. Who owns? Then he responds to himself. He says, لله الواحد القهار. For Allah, the one that subdued everyone, the one that has prevailed over everyone, the one that has overcome everyone. He's overcome everyone with death. Everyone gets defeated like this. And Allah Azza wa Jal is the one that remains victorious. The second thing the Imam says, so the first one's to know you own nothing. The second thing he says, وَلَا يُدَبِّرُ الْعَبْدُ لِنَفْسِهِ تَدْبِيرًا. For you not to take charge or control of your affairs. Don't think that you're controlling everything. You know, sometimes you see these people, he says to me, I'm traveling overseas. I say, why? He said, they're going to get lost in this country. I said, mate, you're certain? He said, what do you mean I'm certain? I said, I'm worried about myself, you're worried about your kids. I'm not even certain about myself to worry about my kids. Are you that certain that you're safe? Then how do you go about your life? I said, I rely on God to keep me guided. This is what I rely on. رَبِّ لَا تَكِلْنِي إِلَىٰ نَفْسِ طَرْفَةَ عَيْنٍ أَبَدًا. I'm not in charge of my affairs. I have no control over these matters. I'm a servant of God. And this is what I rely upon. You know, sometimes you might think, if I die, what will happen to my kids? What did Imam Hussein alayhi salam think going to Karbala? That my kids are going to be taken, and this was absolutely acceptable for him. Why? Because he knows Allah is the one that looks over them. Why do you think Allah Azza wa Jal, when He speaks about Ibrahim, He says, Ibrahim alladhi waffa. He mentions Ibrahim to be loyal, and He loves Ibrahim so much. Because Ibrahim, even when he was being thrown in the fire, when they asked him, do something about it, you are Ibrahim, the angels said, يكفيني عن سؤالي علمه بحالي. Why do I have to even ask God when I know He worries about me more than I worry about myself? Allah's more concerned about you than you're concerned about yourself. Believe me. So He says, leave these. The servant does not take charge or control of his affairs. And then He says, وَجُمْلَةُ, the third thing, اشتغاله فيما أمره الله تعالى به ونهاه عن. The entirety of the slave's preoccupation is worrying about what Allah has commanded him to do and abstaining from what Allah has forbade him. That's it. That's their preoccupation. Now the question someone might ask, when we say he's preoccupied with the akhirah and he leaves the dunya, someone will ask, oh hold on, what about study, work? Yeah, you're supposed to do all this. This is part of the akhirah. You're supposed to. Working and learning to work in this dunya is part of your akhirah, because you need to raise a family. Sure, I sit in my hands. You know, when intidhar al-faraj, there's people, luzum al-bayt, they think, all right, I sit at home and fold my arms. What's this literal thought? When someone says something, you know, after this I'll get someone to say, Sheikh, why did you say people shouldn't study? And I said, what are you talking about? Did you even listen to what I said? That's the first question I'll get from somebody. Why did you say people, you're meant to study, but not for the ilm that I'm talking about, the ilm from the imams, that ilm that's there, that special ilm to understand comes from servitude. That's why when someone goes to the hawza to study, primarily when anyone asks about a teacher, I always tell them, look for the one that has the most piety. The one that has the most piety is the best one to learn from. Don't, you know, sometimes people say, oh, this one, he's the qimma of knowledge. I go, look for the one that has the most piety. The one that fears God the most. And you know by what the people say, is this person, no. This person, you see them, they'll sit down, they'll think about the word they're about to say. They're the ones you want to sit and learn from. They're the scholars. Why? Because when I sit with them, they will teach me how to worship. I remember one of my friends, he was studying Bahth with Al-Marhum al-Sayyid Muhammad Sa'id al-Tabatabai al-Hakim. And he said that I used to sit in his lesson, and I used to, this is amazing, he said I used to learn 30% from what he would teach and 70% from his akhlaq, his mannerisms. I said, okay, what do you mean by that? Because I wanted, you know, I just didn't want to take it as a line and say, wow. I said, what do you mean? He said, for example, we're in Iraq and it's in the middle of summer and it's hot and the electricity cuts out. You know, nothing's working anymore. Even the microphone turns off. He said, and this man's standing in his 80s at the time, when he was alive. He said, and he wouldn't say, you know, lessons over, everyone go home. He would raise his voice and continue, and he'd be sweating, and he would continue the lesson, and he would give the lesson its right. He wouldn't end it. He wouldn't say, like we say, oh, rain drops, work stops, let's just go home. No. He would continue. He'd say, this is Daras as his heart. One of my teachers from Beth al-Faqih, Sheikh Saleh, he would say, one thing I loved about him, when he wanted to travel, okay, before he traveled, okay, before he left anyway, if he had a class, he'd do it and go to the airport. He wouldn't say, all right, I've got a lesson today, and I'm traveling today, I'm taking the day off. And if he comes back and he turns up early and he can give a lesson, he'd give it before he goes home. He'd actually write them in and make sure he doesn't waste these. Because he knows that this is not a job where he's making like $350 an hour. This is a job, lillah. He turns up and he gives it its haqq, what it needs to be done in this manner. Then the Imam explains why. He says, فَإِذَا لَمْ يَرَ الْعَبْدُ لِنَفْسِهِ فِيمَا خَوَّلَهُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى مِلْكًا هَانَ عَلَيْهِ الْإِنفاق فِيمَا أَمَرَهُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى أَنْ يُنْفِقَ فِيهِ. If you don't see that you own anything, it's so easy for you to give. When someone says give, you don't sit there and go, oh my God, I'm going to go bankrupt. Because it's not mine, it's God's, He's going to give me more. I need to give, I just give. Doesn't mean, we're not saying tahawwur, I'm not telling you to throw caution to the wind. Doesn't mean, all right, just empty your bank. No, I'm saying give where you need to give. Now, always people that have doubt, I always notice this, everyone has shak when it comes to salah, and wudu, and ghusl, and they always call you. But I've never had anyone in my life up to today call me and have shak and khumus or zakat. They all tell you, I don't know. Automatically, there's no doubt, there's no waswasi. The shaitan doesn't know anything about money and paying money. That's just the way people are. Comes to money, everyone's certain they don't need to pay. And everyone's poor. They're always poor. They'll buy the best properties, best vehicles, but they're poor. But anyway, here's the other thing. Then he says, وَإِذَا فَوَّضَ الْعَبْدُ تَدْبِيرَ نَفْسِهِ عَلَى مُدَبِّرِهِ هَانَ عَلَيْهِ مَصَائِبَ الدُّنْيَا. That if I put the affairs in the hands of God, whatever befalls me, what did Imam Hussain alayhi salam say? That it has become easier on me. Why? Because لأنه بعين الله. Even the biggest tragedy can befall you and you get affected. Like Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, when he wept, when he buried his son Ibrahim, what did he say? القلب يحزن والعين تدمع ولا نقول إلا ما يرضي الرب. That I'm sad, it's my son. I cry, it's my son. It's not something easy, but I will only say what pleases God. I know He's returned. For God's sake, someone has a pet, they get upset when the pet dies or something happens. Imagine your child. However, they always approve because they know when Allah took them, there was a better purpose. There was a reason why this happened, and they are submissive to this and accept it. Then he says, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, وَإِذَا اشْتَغَلَ الْعَبْدُ بِمَا أَمَرَهُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى وَنَهَاهُ لَا يَتَفَرَّغ مِنْهُمَا إِلَى الْمِرَاءِ وَالْمُبَاهَاتِ مَعَ النَّاسِ. That if someone engages themselves in doing what God has commanded, what Allah has commanded, and what Allah has forbade, they will not, he says, لا يتفرغ منهما إلى المراء. Okay? Mira is when you behave in a way for people to think you're something that you're not. Have you ever seen those people that design videos? For example, they'll make a scene where they're doing something and they'll film it so people think, oh, this person's giving to charity, and they'll film it. So people say, oh, look how charitable this person. All these someone, one of one of the YouTubers, everyone always shows you Mr. Beast, where he goes out and he gives people money and everyone gets excited. Oh, he's giving people money. Well, if he's doing it, why is he filming it? You know, because you're giving him 80 million views, so he gets more money. So they don't do this and show you I'm of charitable nature. Or have you ever seen the celebrities when they go to Africa? They always adopt African children. They always go there, they're always around holding them. Why? Because they want this. This is mirror. They won't follow this because they are too preoccupied with doing what God has commanded and abstaining from what He's forbade. And then he says, وَالْمُبَاهَةِ وَمُبَاهَةِ مَعَ النَّاسِ. It's when you flaunt with people. It's like when I want to show off what I have, which is what people do. If you look at, for example, one of the most, I think if you were to depict the sin of pride and self-delusion and narcissism and vanity all in one, you put it in Instagram. That's just it. When people, there's people that use it for good things. I'm talking about the ones that use it for evil. The ones that sit there and they'll take 2,000 photos just to put 3 of them up on Instagram. Make sure they got their best side, and if they're training their arms, they'll always take a photo of the most provocative part of their body to show everyone what they have. These types of people that do these types of things do it to flaunt what they have to others. But if you're too preoccupied with obeying Allah Azza wa Jal and abstaining from what Allah has forbade, you'll have no time for this at all. Then the Imam Salawatullah alayhi says, فَإِذَا أَكْرَمَ اللَّهُ الْعَبْدِ بِهَذِهِ الثَّلَاثِ هَانَ عَلَيْهِ الدُّنْيَا وَإِبْلِيسُ وَالْخَالِقِ. If a servant of God has been dignified by God with these 3 things, then this world, shaitan, and the creation become easy for them. They don't worry. Because their goal is who? Allah. They don't worry about everyone else. Then they become, this is where they start getting knowledge. When I get this, the Imam finally says this is the first stage of taqwa. He says this is the first stage of taqwa when you get to this point. The thing is, we are servants, but we are free to choose our master. Allah doesn't tell you that, listen, the sun will not shine on you unless you obey me as God. No. The sun rises on the one that wakes up and prays the Fajr and does dua till sunrise, and they get the benefits of the sun, and the one that's crawling back from the pub first thing in the morning, they get the benefit of the sun. Everyone has it. Everyone gets a benefit of the sun. We're free to choose whoever our master is. Allah gives you that time. But this is for this world. In the hereafter, you reap what you made as choices here. Now, Amir al-Mu'mineen in his munajat, and this is a famous statement that many people know, where he says, كَفَى بِعَزًّا أَن تَكُونَ لِي رَبَّةً. I'm dignified enough. I'm honored to have you as my Lord. And then he says, وَكَفَى بِي فَخْرًا أَن تَكُونَ أَن أَكُونَ لَكَ عَبْدًا. Okay? And I'm proud to be your slave. This is my pride. He says, أَنْتَ لِي كَمَا أُحِبْ فَوَفِّقْنِي لِمَا تُحِبْ. You are perfect as a God. Make me the perfect servant. In fact, there's nothing more that you can desire in what Allah Azza wa Jal is. Allah Azza wa Jal is a master that doesn't need you, but He gives you. خَيْرُكَ إِلَيْنَا نَازِلْ وَشَرُّنَا إِلَيْكَ صَاعِدْ. You give us the banquet, we return the bones. We don't give anything good. It's one of the best, it is the best relationship that you ever have. It's a relationship where you just take. You don't give. If I pray, it's for me. If I fast, it's for me. If I do good, it's for me. God doesn't benefit. It's all for me. It's the best relationship. Where would you find a master that's like this with his slave? Masters usually have their slaves doing their dirty work, the hard work that they don't want to do. That's the purpose of having them there. But the thing is, I'm going to leave you on, sorry, I've been up here for a while. You don't want to lose what you have. Dua bi Hamza Thamali. The Imam says, وَلَا تَسْلُبْنِي صَالِحًا مَا أَنْعَمْتَ بِهِ عَلَيْهِ. Do not take what the goodness I have. My dear brothers and sisters, this is what I'm going to finish with. You congregate at this center. You are Khuddam Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, and this is an honor that you would prefer over being a king. If someone offered you to be the king of this world or to be the servant of Abu Abdullah, Khuddam Abu Abdullah al-Hussein will always want to be the servants. If you can't have both, you have one or the other. They would only prefer to be the servants. I said, oh Allah, do not take this from me. Imagine this was taken from you. That you don't have this desire to be the servant of Imam Hussein. Don't allow people to talk you, and especially everywhere I go, there's so much Husseiniyya and Masajid politics. Ignore these politics. I have a problem with someone in the Husseiniyya, just sit on the other side, but keep turning up. I'm not happy, go to another center. Don't cause problems. This person follows that marja, who cares? That's his business. He follows that marja, I follow that marja. Don't sit there and say this marja or that marja is right or wrong. It's not your job to do this. Don't sit there and judge people on this when you're dealing with them. Because what happens in the end is you end up losing. You end up leaving. This guy used to turn off. Final story, and I'm done. I apologize for the longevity of this speech. This guy used to turn up to one of the Husseiniyyat. I know this guy personally. And someone said, don't go to this Husseiniyyah. He said, why? They said, these people belong to this marja. And they do this and they do that. So he stopped going. One day, one of the taxi drivers was driving, he found him coming out of a nightclub. See, these same well-wishers didn't follow him to the nightclub and said, don't enter here, Iblis is here. Shayateen are here. This is the wrath of God. They don't care about that. They just care he doesn't go to this marja Husseini. Then he returned him back to the Husseini. These same Abalis came and said, don't go to this Husseini. These people believe this and that. Then this time he left and he never returned. Every time I see him, every now and then, Salam alayhi, he's not really, alaykum assalam, he's not interested in anything to do with religion. Because of these Satans. These same Satans that follow people to get them out of centers. Don't listen to al-qili wal-qal. You turn up here, you gain, you drink from Zad Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. This is the food. You're his guests here. You say salawat, your kids say salawat. Your kids, I've seen some of the kids, God bless them, handing out tissues, handing out the things to drink, collecting things to drink, giving the Turb al-Husseini so we can do sujood. This is what's important. This is what you have. You lose when you leave. When you leave the Husseini, you lose. No one loses. No one owns this Husseini. Trust me. No one owns it. The people that work here, they have a job that they're not getting salaries. I don't like to use the volunteer word because I hate that word. They're not volunteers. They're here, they're proud to be Khuddam Abu Abdullah Hussein. The people that come to centers, the people that involve themselves in centers, they're here to do what? They're here to get themselves into the highest places in paradise. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal not to take us from this world until He is pleased with us, and to hasten the reappearance of our Master Al-Hujjat ibn Al-Hasan Al-Mahdi. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma kulli waliyika Al-Hujjat ibn Al-Hasan. صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا محافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا معينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصل اللهم على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.